We would make some time, cut out some time here before we start the main event each evening and give a chance for our sponsors to present something exciting and new. Unreal Engine, there's a lot of new and exciting things going on. I'm going to let our presenter today go more into that because he knows what he's talking about much more than I do. So I guess let's bring him on. Fabrice, how are you doing today?
Hey, all right, good.
Great.
Brilliant.
So we've got a bunch. Yeah, I think we're good. Fabio, do you sleep okay?
Yeah. I was just monitoring the. Well, I did not sleep.
Wake up.
No, the thing is that I did not sleep that well because yesterday night after the show we went as a tradition to grab a beer.
Yeah.
But then we had a very bad idea to get ribs.
Yeah.
Like
this was way too late.
20 minutes to midnight, and I haven't digested the ribs until now.
It was much too late for ribs. Really, it was. I felt the same way this morning, but I feel good now.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Tonight we're gonna eat just a salad afterwards, or nothing. But Fabrice, I think we're gonna let you go ahead and take it away. I think that's what everybody's here waiting to see.
Cool.
So if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, brilliant. So
and Fabrice, please also tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
I will. Don't worry. I can't help talk about myself. No, so here we go. So I usually do this training, whether it's obviously live or in a classroom with people and you guys, right here, I feel a bit like I'm on my own, apart from seeing you two guys on the screen here. So as we were just saying just before, if we have questions, if you want to make this, if you want to interrupt me, that's the idea. So I kind of get to talk to you guys, but right now I can't see you, I can't see anybody, so it feels a bit like I'm talking to myself, which is fine. We're used to it, but really, do interrupt and ask questions, and I'm really happy to divert and talk about some specific features or anything that you'd like to. So can you see my screen all right? Yeah, Excellent. All right. So, okay. So today we are going to talk about, so I'll just tell you a little bit about me because I did promise. So my name is Fabrice. I trained as an architect, actually qualified, will you believe it? And actually worked as an architect for a while. But right from the beginning, I have to say, I just fell in the 3D cauldron and never looked back. Even though I did try and build buildings, I was just really into building them in virtual reality. So that was back in 1996. I studied in Manchester in England and graduated as an architect in Paris in France. And went back to England. I couldn't resist and established myself as pretty much a freelancer or a contractor. And I was very lucky, obviously being in London, to work with all these amazing companies and people, and to learn so much and from them, but very much anchoring the ability to work in 3D right from the beginning, and to help these people create their designs, communicate, and not only with their clients but also with the teams, and to make things move forward. So the reason I'm kind of going on about this is not to show off, but to kind of just inspire some of you maybe to go, this is possible. You can really have some amazing kind of influence over these guys. So finally, what I just finish off on this bit is that my practice, my kind of specialty, if you want, is to really go in very early on in the design process and use 3D to help, to help visualize and to help design, as opposed to a lot of us or companies who would maybe be more active towards the end of the design and where everything is done, everything is specified, and you're just kind of putting things in, ticking boxes and making sure everything is kind of photoreal and totally mistaken as a photo. So for me, it's really about the power of 3D to I would say almost infuse design. I say to my clients, my job is to take what's inside of your head and put it in front of your eyes. So when Unreal sort of became free, going from, you know, took a few zeros off of the tag price, which was kind of 1 million something for a license. I saw what Kula did on YouTube. I just went straight. I just dropped everything and went full on in using Unreal, and got in touch with Epic, and so that was back in 2016, and I've ever since worked with Epic as a contractor, doing training, working on projects and helping out customers. So that's that. If you want to know more about me or get in touch, there's my website with my name, very unoriginal, and my YouTube channel, which is also just my name. So pretty easy to find. If you want to type in Google, I think if you type Fabrice and Unreal, you'll get all my stuff. Okay, and if you want to get in touch via Epic Games, you can get in touch via this email address. So today we are going to work on this scene, which is kind of a big external project, which I've kind of botched together to show this. So we're going to not go around the entire project. Obviously, we're going to lock the camera in this space, but it's more to show you how to set up an exterior scene. And it's kind of on purpose that it would be kind of a big building, but showing you how to do this in a very short amount of time. So to show you how it's possible, and also it's good to be doing this as a live session because there's no light baking, no pre-rendering. So it's really absolutely all about doing all this stuff in real time. There's no effectively, and there's not even any rendering time. It's just a few seconds. So what I'm going to propose to do with you is, and I can't remember, guys, if we managed to get people to download the files or not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. If you have the file, then you can follow with me. If you don't, then you can just watch. So the idea here is that we kind of start up with setting up the scene and doing this daylight. And then we'll sort of turn it into a night scene, and then we'll do a little animation. So, that'll give me the chance to talk to you about some of the latest features in 425. Okay, so I'm not going to show you more slides now. We'll just go straight into Unreal. So let me share my screen again, showing the interface only. Okay, so that's the scene that we're going to basically recreate. So let me just show you. So some of you may have seen this before, in the sense that I have presented this scene already at Unreal Fest, and but the only difference was that at Unreal Fest, it was about half an hour, and now it's going to be a little bit longer. We've got 2 hours together. So if things want to work, so now I'm kind of completely stuck in my interface. So let me see if there is something wrong. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So if you can follow with me, you can open this file here in the content levels, and here with the exterior scene finished. So I'll just show you very briefly what we've got here. And okay, so let me just zoom back in. So this building here is kind of unfinished. So I will tell you why and what has happened with here. So before we get started, and we'll kind of recreate the scene from scratch. So what I've got here is is a building which I've actually modeled-ish inside of Unreal. So I'm personally quite interested by, you know, working as much as possible inside of Unreal, and also I do a lot of training, so it makes it everything is a little bit easier for me to show this. But at the same time, it's become a bit of a personal interest, if you want, to be able to create the geometry as much as I can inside of Unreal. So what I've done here, and let's see if I can, yeah. So I will just get rid of these guys quickly. And just a sec, and here we go. So this is somewhat, you know, not necessarily massively useful for you right now, but it's something I like to talk to you about out of interest. It's my personal interest. I think it's quite interesting, and it's kind of we're at obviously a bridge here, because it's no secret to you that this software was not created to do anything like architectural visualization. It was created to do video games. And in video games, it seems to me that there is something which by no means is universal, but it's definitely in Unreal, is that we have this grid, okay, which is a 1 meter by 1 meter square grid, and it's absolutely orthogonal. So this is, you know, this is a flat Earth situation. We've got X going infinitely this way and Y going infinitely this way, totally flat, and Z going straight up. So this is no secret. You've seen this millions of times. But in architecture, we have, you know, we tend to have multiple grids, and even grids, you know, of all sorts of on an arc. And I've seen that. And there is no building that is not set out on a grid, apart from some vernacular one maybe. In Unreal, we just have this one grid. Yep. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm talking to Jason. Right. Did you not get that before? Right. So I don't have a link to the file myself. Ready kind of from Epic. I've got it. I haven't got it ready now. I had the impression that we were going to give that to you via Epic, because I don't have the link. Yeah. Yeah. There is the file is somewhere within at Epic. So I don't have it, and I'm looking at the emails right now. No. Yeah. Sorry, guys, you might have to go through this with the recording, but in any case, you know, it would take too long to download and open the file. I'll probably be finished by the time you've if you're downloading it just right now. So so hopefully we can get that over to you. Otherwise, you're gonna have to register at Epic and come do the training again. Okay, so saying that, all right, you can do this all at home. It's super simple, all right. So what we've got here is I've wanted to recreate this building more or less inside of Unreal as much as I can. And what you see here is that all of these, so obviously I picked this building for a specific reason. It's orthogonal. There's no curves. It's X, Y, Z, right angles, end of story. So, you know, it's prefabricated. There's many good arguments for creating architecture like that. And many people don't, but I think, especially in the States, you know, where many things are flat, all the cities on a grid. So you'll be very common to find this kind of architecture, and it's cheap. You know, in this day and age, we need to build a lot of housing, and there you go. So that is a very special case. But the way I did it, so I'm going to move this little bench out of the way, and I'll come back and talk about these guys in just a sec. So I'm going to put this box which I've created here, and I'm going to actually reset the location of it to be using that little yellow arrow here being at the origin, and with the grid snap enabled on 100, I'm going to move that back here, and you will see that basically it's going to snap absolutely perfectly on this 1 meter by 1 meter grid. So unfortunately, snapping is not great in Unreal just yet. So I'm using the V key here, and that kind of allows me to snap, but you can see it's really jerky. And if I get near a tree, forget it, because it's going to try and get me to snap. So I'll just show you what that does here. If I press the V key, see, look at my tree that's just lit up, and it's trying to get me to snap on everything. So I'm not a massive fan of this. However, if I use the grid snap, then obviously it's going to snap bang on that grid. So except that I've moved it, so it's not on the grid anymore. So okay, so now I'm back on the grid, and it's going to be exactly there. So now if I press my Alt key, and I can just move this box, and it's going to be absolutely bang onto the grid. All right, there's not even a gap between the boxes that you can see. So that's great. That's what we want. And so now if I select all these boxes here, I can actually make another layer like that, and I've got all these little boxes that are nicely set up. So they're just absolutely standard boxes, nothing to them, apart from the fact that the pivot is here right in the corner, and I had to really triple check that it was absolutely spot on in the corner in 3ds Max. So now if I take these boxes, which are kind of placeholders, you know, and it's a standard step in architectural design, and in actually probably pretty much in any design or any kind of artistic endeavor, that you're going to start really blocky. You know, you're going to start like a massing design. So this is very, you have to go through this step, but then you want to add detail to this. So now we've got this static mesh, which is basically that box that I created in Max and sort of change the pivot in. And I can just literally take another module, if you want, and swap that for that static mesh. So I've selected that into the content browser and assigned it to this static mesh here. And you can see that now my panels are perfectly in line. I'm just going to turn the sun down a little bit so that we can see a bit more detail. And here we go. So here, now if I take these other guys up here, I can actually swap them for this little box, which is kind of like an intermediary sort of floor system here. And I can even sort of, if I take one, I can swap that for, say, a balcony if I want. Okay, so so I'll actually put that back to a ceiling one. In these corner ones, I've created some corner edges here like that. So I've got that there, and for this one, I've created another corner. So you can see how basically it's like Lego. I'm literally playing with modules which all fit with each other, and I can play, and this is very, very, very fast. So not only it's fast, but also it's pretty much the way that games are created. So it's kind of how Unreal is basically meant to work. So Minecraft is built like this, and pretty much Fortnite as well. When you look down, all the buildings are kind of strangely orthogonal, and all the streets are more or less kind of orthogonal too. So it's basically works very, very, very well for real time. Why? Because these squares are, I did a little bit of machine language programming in my young days, and we were literally using hexadecimal sort of memory addresses, and that's what it is. So you swap memory addresses. So this fits in memory very, very well, and it's very fast. So that's why it works really well. So now I kind of went to town a bit and then just built this building. It really didn't take me very much, but you can see that each element is completely independent, if you want. So here I can go and I can swap this with that one if I want, and go on and on forever. So now once this was done, I select them all. So all of it, there's quite a lot of it here. Control-Shift-D to, no, I can't do that one. I was going to give you a little shortcut, but it doesn't work. And here I've got all of them selected. So when, with all of them selected, I'm able to right-click and go Merge Actors here. And so I'm not going to do it now because I've done it already. But here you've got this ability to basically collapse all of these meshes into a single mesh. Okay, here if I click Merge Actors, so I'll let you sort of experiment with this Merge Actors in your own time if you've got if you want to. But here I'll just point out that we've got 3 tabs which work in a different way from each other. The main one, which is your normal collapse, like in 3ds Max, you just collapse it all into one mesh, and obviously it becomes a little bit, you know, heavy. Whereas here, that's very interesting here. And do try this, you know, at home in your own time, but you will collapse and merge the actors, but you will keep all the individual references to all the different modules. So it's going to be like one mesh with all the different modules kept inside, and it's very, very good for optimization and things like that. Maybe a little bit more too advanced if you're totally brand new to Unreal. Okay, so I didn't ask actually how familiar you all are with Unreal, but I can't talk to you. So I'll assume that most of you guys have followed a little bit what's going on already. Okay, so that being said, after I've collapsed everything, you can see that I've got these buildings now that are basically single meshes, and unfortunately the pivot is kind of out there, so that's a bit of a pain, but no problem, we can sort that out. Okay, so that being said, how are we doing with time? 1.5 hours left, we're good. So let's recreate this scene together. If you haven't got this scene, you can't do it with me, but if you watch the recording, you can. So I'll recreate it from scratch, and hopefully that will all make sense. So I'll just create a level. So I'll actually delete that one because I did it this morning, and I'll delete this one, and I'm going to create a new level. So the way I like to do it is to right click here in the content browser and level here, and that gives me a new world. So obviously when I click on that, I've got a completely blank level. So if you've used Unreal before, you might have used some of the templates, and fair enough, do use the templates, you know, as you want. And just a quick word about here, we've got this time of day template, which is great, but personally, I don't like them just because I don't like this sky. It looks really gamey, and I see many people, you know, when they come with the new scene, they show me the new scene, and I'm like, you didn't pick that sky, did you? So it's like the sky is so important in all the renders, you know, it means a lot, and you want to pick it, right? You don't want to be just handed over like whatever sky is going to be. You want to make that conscious decision. So that's the main idea, and you don't want the same sky as everybody else, you know, on all your images. So that's kind of one of the main reasons. And yeah, so you can right click here, or you can create file new levels up here and then pick an empty level. So I'm old school 3ds Max user. Yeah, please. Yes, I will. So I'm going to leave that till the end. Oh, right. Yes. Sorry, because they can hear me, but not you. So we have a question from Raul, who is asking about render elements inside of Unreal. So I'm going to talk about that at the end when I'll talk about this movie render queue. And then we can talk about a little bit about rendering for that. So we'll keep that till I'll keep this in mind, and hopefully I won't forget. But traditionally, yes, I haven't used render elements much, and basically the reason why is because of anti-aliasing. So that's why I want to keep that till the end, because I will talk about anti-aliasing at the end. Okay, so saying that, where's my new level? So here I've created one using file, new level. So I'm going to save it straight away in my levels folder here, and I'll call that new map. That'll do. Okay, great. So first thing we're going to do is go into this CAD folder, and unfortunately you don't have the file to follow with me. That's a shame, but here we've got the site, and in the site we can use this landscape that basically I've used from another project that one of my the members of I've got a kind of online, whatever you call it, group, and he very kindly gave this to me to use, and I've used it here too. So it's from another project, and basically it doesn't correspond at all to what we're going to do today, but it doesn't matter. It's a good placeholder, and I just wanted to have this little bit of detail here. So whatever site you have, we can use that as a basis, and then we're going to use that building that basically I created, like I told you before, and we've got that pivot point that's in the wrong place. So we've actually got a way to, if you've got your pivot at the wrong place like I have here, you can just right click and go pivot, set pivot offset here. And so now I've got a more convenient pivot. So I'm going to move that over there like this. And so obviously here, you know, if you're working with a client, or you probably would have all of this already done in 3ds Max or whatever software you use, and you would just import this using Datasmith. Okay. And actually, to be honest, nowadays, it really doesn't need to be 3ds Max. It could absolutely be all from Revit, of course. And I've done quite a few projects with Revit now, and it works really well. It didn't kind of obviously at the beginning because there wasn't that functionality, but now it's it could really come in straight from Revit, or gosh, even Rhino. The Rhino imports works really, really well too. So I'm kind of, as I'm chatting, I'm populating this scene just mainly for shadows from the sun and GI and things like that. And also to show you, I'm actually working on a laptop today with a 2070 video card. So you'll see that it really doesn't, you know, it's totally happy dealing with this. So, and I forgot what I was saying just before. So I'll just carry on with here. And what was I saying? Fabio, were you listening? I can't remember. Anyway, so carry on. Were you? So that's a good excuse. Okay, so just saying here, we've got so we've got the site, and I like to actually use this unlit mode at this stage. It doesn't look very different because there's no lights in there, but I come from this the perspective, if you want, that when you do this, you might be at a stage where you're going to do a lot of re-import, you know, specifically, well, if you're working with these softwares or Revit, and yeah, that's what I was talking about, Rhino, Cinema 4D, what else? Well, all basically, yeah, Rhino, the import works so well. It's really great. So you don't even need to export as datasmith. It takes Rhino files straight in. You can do remeshing and everything. So that works really well. SketchUp, all these, you know, these files, these could really come from any software nowadays. So here, in unlit mode, I'm going to continue to just basically populate the scene. And the idea here is that you wouldn't need to set up anything. You could literally just go back and forth and being able to already work and provide some kind of value, you know, by being able to navigate a little bit more and see this. In architecture, we have a lot of value in you know, things being not fully rendered. You know, people, I see this with my clients. So that being said, we're going to start adding a few trees in here. So I've got some trees in here, and if we do manage to get the file in the meantime, fantastic. So I've got a couple of trees that I've created using grow effects in 3ds Max, and this was actually really straightforward. I used the, you know, the demo versions of the trees, and this one's even got animated leaves. So those of you who've seen training from me before, you kind of know this tree by heart because we've used it millions of times, but it's really cool. We've got animated leaves here. So that's one of the amazing things about real time, is obviously that we don't have to have animation keys all the time. You know, this is literally a sinusoidal kind of formula that is adding this kind of life a little bit. Even here without any lights, we can see that something's moving. Whenever I show this to property developers, they're like, oh, the trees, the leaves are moving. They get really excited. So yeah, great, bring it on, you know. So here we've got another tree, which here you can see triangles, 890,000 triangles. Okay, so this is not your average sort of 5 million, you know, Evermotion kind of a tree here, but it's still nearly 1 million. All right, so it's and the computer is totally happy, or Unreal is totally happy dealing with this. So why not? You know, bring it on. These are not, how do you call it? You know, game optimized assets. These are almost just asset you would use seamlessly in a offline render situation. So that tree, I'm gonna actually stick it into the foliage tool, because the foliage tool is greatly optimized to work with large data sets, basically. So I'm going to drag and drop that little guy in the foliage tool here, and I'm going to use the single mode here in the foliage tool. So which is the new one actually here in 4.25, which is, I guess, not so new anymore given the rate of updates that Epic gives us. So what I like to do here is just simply untick align to normal, because we've got a bit of a slope here and I want the trees to be straight. And then we can just change the scale a little bit. We're not going to get too fancy here. So I'll just pop a few trees here and kind of just mainly showing off, all right? Because we've got these 1 million trees and nearly 1 million faces trees, and I'm kind of, you know, quite happy to just dot them around all over the place. And I'm not really experiencing any kind of loss of performance in my viewport here, which is great. And we haven't got any lights yet, but we will, and it'll still be fine. Okay, so that's that with the trees. I've got a couple of bushes here that I like to dot around just to kind of soften the edge here. So I'll do that. And then I'm going to show you a trick for the grass. So here I've used this before and it's saved a foliage type here. So I'm actually going to drag and drop straight that foliage type, so which is the same. It was created automatically. And what this does is that basically saves my previous settings in here. So foliage type, and then you see I've got this scale 6 to 8, and then the density here. So again, with my single mode, I'm going to put a few of these guys, just dot them around like that. So obviously you can spend a little bit more time and do it properly. So I'm going to generally work from this angle, so we can keep that going there, and we can keep that in mind. And what else? So here I have this little bench that I've also got from the original file. So I'll get out of the foliage mode. I'll just go back into select. And here the great thing, and I know there's no textures, so I can do this, but here again, the idea is that we can kind of customize this inside of Unreal just with this type of geometry. I can just very simply scale it and just have this little bit extra, you know, well, not exactly modeling, but getting there, you know, going towards this, being able to really appreciate everything straight away in real time, or whatever it is that we can do. So I'll actually put one of these guys over there. And finally, I'll add a couple of people that I had before. So just for a little info, render people marketplace. If I Google that, you've got these guys, which are really cool. It's like a sample pack, but it's free. So might as well, if you haven't used it before. Yeah, these people are great, and they've got some rigged ones, which I've used once, which works really well, but it was a while back. And they've got this funny guy doing a funny dance. So, oh, you can't see this. Okay, so I'll share this quickly. Hang on, new share screen 2. So there we go. That's what I was showing you that you didn't see. Render people. If you Google render people marketplace, you should find this. Otherwise, you just do a search inside the marketplace. So okay, so share again my my Unreal Engine. Okay, so I'll put a couple of people in here. I mean, I'm cheating. I've done this before, so I'm just going to go straight, put the people straight where I had them before. And here we go. The lady here, and then these guys. This guy's really happy because he's so flat he wants to get. All right, so now, okay. You know, the scene is populated. So again, this is what you would do because you're kind of going back and forth, and you're putting things in and out, and sort of checking that everything's right. The textures are kind of the right thing in the right place, and the geometry is in the right place as well. So I like to do this unlit mode so that we can move without, without having to set anything up. So that being said, now, for those of you who've seen my training before, especially when we do interiors, we are going to, in interiors, you want to build the light mass, the light mass, the sort of pre-render the GI. And so in this case, I don't want to use this, all right, at all. We've got trees, we've got greenery, and it's a big site, and I don't want to have to build the light mass. So I'm going to show you how I do this without the light mass. And those of you who've seen my training before, we use this environment color, and we kind of set it on white. So none of that today. I just want to use whether it's ray tracing or just normal kind of outdoor setup. So I'm just checking whether I'm in ray tracing. I'm not in ray tracing yet, so I'll show you the first part if you want non-ray tracing, and then we'll swap over to ray tracing and finish off in ray tracing, if that's all right. I do miss not being able to talk to you guys. So anyway, I'll assume it is. So first thing I'll put, as opposed to what I would do for an interior, is the directional light straight away. So I like this lighting only mode here because it gets rid of everything. And so here I'll just do a tiny little part to show what the value may be, you know, for this kind of view here, is to kind of look into what I called no tan. So some of you may have heard of this. I was just talking about it this morning. So no tan is a kind of Japanese, oh, so you can't see this now. So you share, okay, I'm just going to show my screen for now. Quickly, I'll come back to this. And if I go like this, no. So I'll come back to this in a sec, but basically no tan is this way of working with black and white. And it's like a Japanese tradition, I think. And obviously, a yin-yang sign is is kind of probably the most well-known, but it's way to appreciate the negative and the positive. All right. So if you do no tan for artist, or generally it's got to do with composition, and here it's a way to conceptualize or to see what something, but only in absolute pure black and white. And you can see how when that is skillfully done, you can create very beautiful images. And basically, this is a technique which is used, my gosh, over and over again in concept art and concept design and so on, and even in fine art. So it's a way to create these little thumbnails, you know, post-it notes or even stamp size thumbnails. So it's very widely used in fine art, and I do quite a lot of drawing, and this is definitely when you do drawing in charcoal and things like that, it's stage one of the process. So separating light and dark. So that's very much my little drawing plug in here. So hang on, let me just go back to that. So, and when I saw that, I was like, great, I've seen this before. You know, we kind of have this idea, we can create this sort of no tan sort of view here. So I've got a lot of tidying up to do in the scene, big bloom here, but there is value, and I like to have a little quick look at this and just to appreciate this, the composition, if you want, in this pure black and white mode. However, I only spend a couple of seconds on here, and then we just go straight into lit mode or something that we can see better. So we're going to work in real time, so no baking, so I can move straight onto movable. And here, I'm not going to go on about it, but we are going to decide what, if you've seen my training before, I called baseline. So here I'm going to decide the intensity of the sun, and I'll make that, I'm kind of thinking, just a sec, no, I'll stick to what I usually do. I won't take too many risks when I'm doing this live, so I'll stay around 2, say. Okay, that's what I normally would have. So obviously it's not 1 lux, and right now we're kind of a little bit in between a real life, how do you call it, realistic kind of lighting units, and there's a little bit of confusion depending where you're gonna what you're going to use. So what I'm showing you now is just to go fully manual, where you have control of everything. All right, but you kind of need to decide how intense you want your sun, and then we'll do some settings, adjusting in the post-process volume. So let me change my mind. I'll do 150. I hope it'll be all right. So I want a sun that's a little bit brighter. So while we're there, let's add the post-process volume. So if you're completely new to Unreal, the post-process volume is this, well, you surely have heard of post-processing, which is, you know, the step when you, after you've done your render, say in 3ds Max and V-Ray, and then you bring it out into Photoshop, you're going to do a lot of work in there. And in Unreal, we can use this post-process volume to do all that kind of work inside before, well, before we render. So with this post-process volume in the scene, I can, I'm going to let it affect the entire scene as opposed to when you're just inside. So I'll click this infinite extent here and change my exposure so that we are not blinded by it. So here the idea is to have this min EV and this max EV to be somewhat similar in a value. So I've done this before, and I'm going to choose -4 and -4. So now I've changed I'm going to change my mind again, if you don't mind. I'll go back to my direct light and I'll choose my usual value of 1. It's just the 1 lux sort of disturbs me a little bit. So so now we've got this, we've got sort of exposure that's more or less acceptable, and I'll turn off the bloom here, intensity 0, and then also the lens flare, intensity 0. Okay, so now I've got this this setup here with my sun. What's missing is hang on, so what was I going to do before with this post-process? Yeah, fix my exposure and nothing else right now. Yes, okay, so we're good. So now we've got our sun, and well, we need, what do we need? We need the sky. So let's add the sky. So we're going to have a procedural sky, which is going to which we're going to be able to move in real time. So there's quite a lot of things that are available to you already. So we've got the sun and sky here, and obviously you can use this, but there's some issues that I prefer to be able to set everything up from scratch. So that's what we're going to do today, and obviously the HDRI backdrop. But today we're going to set the sky by ourselves. So here we'll place the atmosphere. So click ATM here as a place actor, and we will use, so let me just show you quickly the difference between those two. They kind of are the same, except the atmospheric fog is the old one. The sky atmosphere is the new one. So the old one, okay, if I put that in there, you can see I now have a kind of a sky, which is a little bit bright, but if I move this around, so if I change, so here we go. Okay, it's quite subtle. So if I just move it around, so you can see that I have a sun somewhere in here. So I need to change my exposure a little bit to see that. So here we have a sun, okay, which is kind of below the horizon here. So that's the kind of the old one. And but what we need to do is, with the directional light selected, okay, we need to extend this in the details panel to have this little show advanced button here, and we need to have this atmosphere fog sunlight enabled. And that means that now basically my sun is going to drive the sky, and then my little sun is going to be present here in the sky. Okay, however, the problem is that, so now I'm going to need to increase my intensity a little bit. The problem is that when I move the sun down, like below the horizon or towards the horizon, it's completely white, and as you can see, it's not changing at all. All right, so that's kind of not really helping us, and so that's why we're not going to use this old atmosphere. We're going to use the new atmosphere. So now I drag that in. The sun is already driving the atmosphere because I've got this little atmosphere fog sunlight enabled here, and obviously if I turn it off, if you were to drag this sky in without having enabled this link here and this direct directional light, this is going to be totally inactive. So let's do that back on here. And so the difference here that we have is that basically when I change the angle of the sun now, you see we have this beautiful kind of golden color, which is from the sky, and the sky is also going to change color in a kind of a nicer way than the one we had before. So that's pretty cool, and especially that, I think that color is kind of always a little bit tricky to get because, well, as you can see, it's changing quite a lot. So it really depends what the horizon is and how high over the horizon your sun is, and it gives you, so you know, it's quite subtle changes, and I always find it a little bit tricky to get this color. So here I'm quite glad it's giving it to us by default. Okay, so we've got a sun, we've got a sky, great. So now what we need is kind of to fill these shadows a little bit. Well, quite a lot. They're completely black, and that's not kind of serving us too well. So let's add a skylight. So we'll drag and drop the skylight, and you can see that straight away it's giving us kind of a better result. However, in all the skylight, so if I kind of show you, if I move the sun way up like that, and I'll kind of move my skylight in the way, I need to, so if I turn the skylight on and off, it's going to update. And then if I move the sun down, like almost at night, okay, I think I might have done that before. I'll move, make sure that's like that. Let me do that again. I was supposed to show you a problem, but the problem is not there. So hang on. Okay, here we go. So now I've moved my sun down. It's supposed to be night, but the skylight is still blue, all right? So the sky is kind of this purple color here, but my skylight is blue. So that's unfortunate because the skylight basically doesn't update, all right? So it's now sampling the entire environment, but it's not giving me what I've got at the moment. I've got to turn it off and then turn it back on. And now you see it's kind of doing its job. All right, so in order to work completely interactively, I want to be able to update my skylight every frame effectively. So I'm actually going to show you my frame rate now to show you what I'm about to do and the cost of that. So we need to access the little command line. So that's using the key that is next to your number 1 on the keyboard, this little command line. And if you can't remember that for some reason, you can always go to Windows, Developer Tools, Output Log. So this little output log thing is going to give you that command line as well. So I personally prefer to use that little key here. Okay, so what we want is to update the skylight every frame. So we'll go skylight, light, okay, type again, skylight, update. And now we are presented with this skylight update every frame command line. So the way we operate this is that we have to press, have a space and then 1 afterwards. And so that is basically going to enable this functionality of the skylight to update constantly. So that's why I was showing you my frame rate, because look at what's happened to my frame rate is basically dropped by half. So I'll do that again. In fact, if I enable this little command line and press my up arrow, I can access the what I've done before. So now I've turned it off and you can see I'm on 60 frames a second, and now I turn it back on and I'm on 16, so way less than half. Yeah. So anyway, so that's fine. It works for our purpose. And now when I'm moving my sun, it's completely updated in real time. All right, so I've got that working really nicely. Okay, so now there's a couple of things that we could do to improve a little bit the shadows of the sun. So we see here we're non-ray tracing mode, and what's really nice is that these leaves moving are being picked up in the shadows here. However, the shadows are a little bit too blurry. So when we have our sun on movable, and I'll show you that, I'll collapse everything. See, when I go on stationary, all these cascaded shadow maps options are grayed out. But when I set it on movable, this cascaded shadow maps option are now become available. So obviously normally you don't see this because it's kind of all the way down and you've got to scroll all the way down. So in these cascaded shadow maps, I'm going to move that number of dynamic shadow cascades up to 4. And you can see here straight away, we've got a better resolution on the shadows, which is really nice. So the other thing is that there's a kind of a funny thing happening when I go closer and back. So if you can just see what happens. So here, this shadow here is totally blurry, and I move forward, and and it's now a little bit sharper. So I haven't got an exact solution for this. Apart from here on this at this angle, it looks all right, and then you can kind of try and change this value here, but I'm not super comfortable with this, so it's kind of a little bit of a trade-off we need to have. The other thing is that you may find that, so if I bring out my direct light again, depending on that angle, sometimes there's a little bit of bleeding through. For example, well, I'm struggling to find a situation right now. But for example, here sometimes there's a sort of mismatch into where the corners meet. So here, but I'm struggling to find a proper example. So, okay, so maybe we'll just assume it's fine. And if it looks fine, it's fine. But here with the we have the shadow bias here, which you may need to tweak a little bit. And I'm kind of looking at just at this little corner and contact shadow here, and you can see as I'm drawing it, if I've got a big value, that's kind of completely detached, and we have this sort of line here underneath. So shadow bias, I will move that a little bit, but you know what, it's not showing too much, so let's just ignore that for now. Okay, so now we're getting close with our daylight setup. What else? So here, if I was to add a little bit of intensity in this part, in fact, maybe I'll add a little bit of intensity on my skylight, or just add a little bit of exposure. So let me just drag that up a bit. So what we could add is basically, we don't have GI, right? And obviously GI is a big deal, and especially for interiors. And what we're looking at here is a little bit of flatness in the shadows, and also the underneath of the balconies here are just basically way too dark. That's, you know, there would definitely be sort of quite a lot of bounce light that would illuminate the underneath of these balconies here, and that's just not good enough here. So what we can do is use this lower hemisphere color in the skylight, and that's kind of just a really cheat, you know, a hack here, but you know, if it does the job, especially for exteriors, we're not that, you know, we don't really see that very much. Again, this is something that I get from drawing. When we have just one light source, you know, the bounce light is going to be very subtle, just added as a kind of subtle effect at the end. So here I've just used this lower hemisphere color, and I've just made it just, you know, just lifted off the black here so that we've got this kind of illumination. So here it's just basically a flat color that's being shown from underneath, but it kind of does the trick, I think. So finally, things do look flat in the shadows, and so because we've got a strong sunlight that's taking care of all that detail, and the eye is mainly kind of attracted by all the detail in here, but the shadow area could do with a little bit of extra detail here. And so using the post-process volume, we can just add a bit of ambient occlusion. So for those of you who've seen my trainings before, you'll know that when I do interiors, I like to turn that off completely because we do bake the lighting and we want high settings in our light mass and so on. But here, I like to just in exteriors, I like to actually use the ambient occlusion and even maybe bump it up a little bit. So I'm actually going to bump it up all the way to 1. We'll reduce the radius. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit in a minute, but I want to see what I'm doing. And here we can actually go into the power and kind of pump that up as well a little bit. So especially here, you see in the greenery. So if I'm going to turn that off again, you see how flat it is in the shadows, and then we just turn that on and suddenly we've got a lot more detail and a lot more realism that way. Okay, so 0.6, 0.7, maybe 0.8, that's going to do is fine. I think we don't want to do too crazy. And then the radius, well, I guess something quite low to really emphasize these corners, and then suddenly we've got a lot more kind of believability in these corners. So remember that this is totally real time. So I can kind of, if I had my other building, I could start swapping all this stuff. Nothing is baked here, and it's just the flexibility of work. Here again, it's in the how would I say, the context of you having to produce a lot of changes, and this is where we're at the moment. The last job I did, the deadline was Friday night. I got deadline was Friday night. I got an entire new model Thursday night, and it was for an animation of 7,000 frames, rendered at 4K. So yeah, brand new model the day before the deadline, and yeah, we did it. They were happy. So and this is the technique I used to do it. So a lot of last minute changes possible, obviously, when it's like this. It's all real time. Okay, so now we have basically a real-time setup with a procedural sky that updates in real time. So here, when I go completely pitch black, so the sun is gone below the horizon, there's no light shining, the skylight is sampling the sky, and it's not, so theoretically it should be pitch black, but because I've used this lower hemisphere color, basically I've kind of got this really light gray color that's shining in the scene. So that's kind of giving me a little bit of illumination. So that's why this is not pitch black. So this is a good time for me to swap over to ray tracing, and basically because of this problem, right? So, but apart from that, it's not really a problem. You wouldn't necessarily be doing a full-on animation from complete day to complete night in the same period. So it's everything I show you in ray tracing, you can also do not ray tracing. Just before I do that, I'll just point out the fact, because this is a feature we're going to lose in ray tracing, that now I've got my nice animated leaves, and I'm going to turn this update skylight every frame to give me more power, more frame rate. You see, I've got my animated leaves here, and what's a really nice feature is that these leaves are kind of animated here on the facade in the shadow as well, which is kind of quite realistic. And again, it's one of these things. You're going to have a hard time doing this in offline render, you know. I mean, good luck previewing it. You know? So we're going to lose that in ray tracing, but apart from that, it's going to be pretty much the same. Okay, so I'm going to save all that. In fact, I'm going to save everything. And so now to swap over to ray tracing. So some of you might have used, you know, ray tracing if you're kind of learning Unreal. You've got the kit, you've got the stuff, but you're not sort of super familiar with it yet. You might have done like I've done a lot. Select the template, create a Archviz scene, and then here you have ray tracing enabled, disabled, and you choose. Okay, so that's fine. That's great. You can do that. However, if you're like me, you've got millions of past projects and you're like, yeah, I want to try ray tracing on this new project. How do you enable ray tracing from an old project? So you're going to have to go to Edit, Project Settings, and everything always happens in the Rendering tab. However, there's something you need to do before you get to the Rendering tab is you need to go to the Windows. So Platform, Windows, and here you need to make sure that your default RHI is DirectX 12. If you have DirectX 11 or default, you will not be able to use ray tracing. And obviously, you need a ray tracing card. So that's kind of obvious. So DirectX 12 in the default RHI. So once you've got that, you can go to Rendering and down. So you just go all the way down and you've got ray tracing here. So we'll just enable that. Say yes, restart now. And so your screen share has stopped because my program has closed. And hopefully it's not going to take too long to restart. Usually it doesn't. So that's my people. And here we go. Excellent. Okay, so now I'll bring my new map again. Okay, so let me share my screen again. So share screen, screen 2. And then they said optimize share for full screen. Okay, so I guess that's my face is gone, which is good. Okay, so now I'm in ray tracing. So how do I know it's in ray tracing? Apart from there's little dancing ants there, I don't know if you see, but the quick, easy way is just to go and into lit mode here. And if you see path tracing in here, that means that you're in ray tracing. Basically, there's no, your path tracing will not be available if you're not in ray tracing. So apart from that, you know, thankfully it looks the same, which is kind of a good thing. Apart from the fact that my leaves here, as you can see, are just not moving anymore. Okay, so that's fine. We'll live with that. Apart from that, things pretty much look the same. Well, apart obviously from the big thing, which is kind of why you would want to do ray tracing in the first place, is to have these really, really nice soft shadows here. Okay, so that's really, the shadows are really kind of not only sharp, but also soft in the sense that you can control them. So they're a lot more realistic than you would have before. So that's kind of why you would want to use ray tracing, especially in an exterior scene like this with a single source, light source, you know, especially if you kind of do really, really sort of big, you would sort of have overviews like this with a big site and lots of buildings. That is something that, unless I'm mistaken, you know, I'm still on my laptop and then still kind of nearly maxed out on my frame rate here with all these millions of polygons and stuff like that. So in fact, I've heard, and this may be just a rumor, but in this particular situation, one light source, a big site, you know, like a big master plan, your performance may be better in ray tracing than in non-ray tracing. Okay, so I heard that that's kind of that's been measured or that's been experienced. So yeah, have no hesitation to use it that way. Otherwise, I'm gonna just go into this material quickly because it's moving and it's disturbing me. I didn't mean to have it that way. Vegetation, and I will turn that. Oh no, the wind intensity is off. That's good. Excellent. All right. So now in ray tracing, I'm going to go back to my skylight, sorry, and I'm going to turn this lower hemisphere color back down by off, because what I want to do is obviously, you know, use the GI as a kind of added bonus. And so here again, that my frame rate is going to suffer. But looking at the underneath of these balconies here, we will turn on ray trace global illumination. So in here now with the brute force, you know, we've got this really nice illumination underneath the balconies here, which kind of makes a lot of sense. Yep.
I know you've been going for a long time now, and I didn't break in, but somebody has a question. Is it okay if I interrupt you at this moment?
Yeah, yeah, please. It's like, oh, I'm not on my own.
I just want to make sure you know where you are and what you're going to do next. So let's. I got a quick question here. Someone asked. It might be from something you were talking about a moment ago, though. Something it was. They say it's a simple question, but when they tried UE, they had issues with light leaking through the edges of an interior room, and something about that they didn't know about merging meshes, and then asked, "Is that what fixes it?"
Right. Well. Light leaks. Okay, so number one, sorry, so I'll repeat the question because you can't hear. If you think something's going on, something is going on. Jason's just asked me a question.
Fabrice, now they should be able to hear me. Sorry.
Oh, right. Excellent. Okay, great. Phew. Okay, so the question is light leaks. So number one, in ray tracing, things are a little bit different. So, but number one, everything's one-sided in Unreal, so it just makes sense. In real time, you just don't want to make any waste, and to have everything two-sided is a waste. So everything's one-sided. So if you've got a light leak, check your faces, make sure they're not, you know, it's not because you've just got a face that's facing the wrong way and then the sun's going straight through. If that's not the case, then it might be a case of this shadow bias here, which is kind of why I was showing it to you earlier, but I couldn't. Normally I get this kind of error, but it's not, it wasn't really obvious. But change your shadow bias, but be careful, because if you go really low, like if you put it on 0 or very close to 0, you're going to get a lot of banding. And so it's really take a bit of time and go very, very subtle. And you need to find that sweet spot. But it's very, very likely that is due to the shadow bias. And that's not necessarily just in the directional light. It'll be in any other light. So I'll place some more lights very shortly, and we can I'll point that out again.
Thank you very much, Fabrice. That was helpful.
Excellent.
I'll keep looking, and I might break in again. So
please do. That's the whole point.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm also looking at the time. We've got 45 minutes left, so I need to keep a track because I want to show you the sequencer. And the whole point is that we kind of turn this into a little animation. All right. So now, where are we? We've still got a interactive scene. I've turned off my sort of skylight update, I think. I'm not sure. Skylight update. Here we go. So now if I turn my sun down, then we've got this fully interactive scene, which is great. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this stuff in sequencer and create this as an animation. So, and you'll see, and the great thing is that all I'm going to do is turn the sun. So fair enough. So let's go into, so we'll do cinematics. I'll do a level sequence, just a single level sequence. I'll just say yes with this name. And so what we need to do, very simply, is select the directional light in the scene and add the directional light to the sequencer using this green track button here. And this is act as the sequencer. And if I've got the scene, the light, or whatever it is that you want to animate previously selected in the viewport, you can just say add here rather than go and find it in that long list, which is a bit of a pain. So now we want to animate the sun, and you'll notice that here we don't actually have anything that is going to enable us to move the sun here. We've just got intensity and the color. So what we need to do is click on this track button here and give ourselves the ability to change the transform of it. So here is the transform there. So we'll add a transform track. And now you see that we've got rotation. So in fact, with my little auto key set up here, I'm going to start by just creating a rotation key there, and then I'll move. In fact, before I do that, let's extend the length of the sequencer before, because otherwise it's going to be too short. So I'll come back to this in a sec. We're just going to enable the cinematic viewport here. And I'm going to
Fabrice.
use this. Yep.
Hey, we got something else for you. If you
Go for it.
I don't want to do it too many times because then we'll really get you out of the flow. But
No, do.
Quick question.
Yep.
I don't quite understand it, but maybe you will. It said, how do you set up the right exposure? Set up direct light, and then in parentheses 72,000 versus 1, and then real versus fake. I'm not exactly sure what.
So yeah. So basically, I think what he's referring to, or she is referring to, is the fact that here, when I choose my light and I use the sun and sky, which is, most people will do that, and that's perfectly fine. If I drag and drop that sun and sky here, so now it's going to get all completely blown up because we're going to have multiple skies. Sometimes it takes a little while to come in, but so that's not, if you use the sun and sky, that's not what would happen. Well, although it has. So this is why I'm showing you the method that I'm showing you. But here I've got the sun and sky here, and if I click on the directional light, you'll see 75,000. All right, so this is the confusion that we have today, and the reason why we have this confusion, so I'll take this little time to explain because I think it's important, is that we are moving from basically a pure game workflow, which is, to be honest, pure hacks. For games, the number one thing is frame rate. Is if you don't have a frame rate, you're dead. So that's the end of story.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, so it has to keep the frame rate, and for that, it's just cheating all the way under the hood. All right. So, in that sense, to have realistic light units was just off the list of priorities for Unreal Engine and any game designers or software. Now, that I believe is something that we're wanting to change, because obviously we're appealing to a much wider market, and even for gaming now we're just so much closer to reality that matching real world lighting units has become important. However, it's not a small task, and we're going to move there, but it's going to take several releases, and it's complicated. The program is vast, and even though we've got a full kind of 32-bit environment here, so that's kind of as close as you're going to get to reality, full floating point. It's like, working in HDR in real time in the viewport all the time. However, it's it's not that simple to basically propagate this all around the entire thing. So here, the sun and sky is basically having a value which is approximately what you would measure the brightness of the sun to be at today, 75,000 lux. However, in my experience, it kind of breaks down a little bit later on when you're working with what are they called? Reflection probes and materials and other things. So I'm not quite ready to make that leap straight away using this kind of super high values for the sun intensity. Okay, so the in V-Ray, for example, all of this is completely taken out of your workflow because the sun is on 1, and that's that. You know, you would nowadays you wouldn't go and modify the intensity of the sun when you use V-Ray. When I started using V-Ray at the beginning, I would just always have it on 0.025 and things like that. So so basically that's kind of my interpretation of it. I believe that, you know, ultimately we will be in the setup where all of these light units make sense. At the moment, they don't really it's not very consistent throughout when you're going to start using spotlights and so on. Okay, so the truth is that at the end of the day, what matters really is kind of what you see on the screen, right? So what counts is kind of, you know, it's art we're doing. It's not science. So so if it looks fine, it's fine. So hopefully that answered the question, but it's on an ongoing, it's an ongoing thing. And so as releases come one after the other, I think we're going to move towards something that's definitely more real world scenario.
Okay, thank you, Fabrice, very much.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Okay.
All right. So now, so that being said, you know, you need to make that decision. Where you're going to be, I call this baseline. In V-Ray, it's sun on 1, end of story. The decision is made for you here. You have to decide. And everything, well, not everything, but a lot of things down the line are going to be relevant to where you've chosen to take that baseline. So here, that's why at the beginning I was like, oh, shall I go 150? Shall I stay on 1? And here I ended up on 10. So so that's where we are. Okay, so that's that for the intensity. Now what we're going to do is make this rotation. So I was just changing the length of the sequence because here 150, that's going to be a little bit too fast. So I'm going to double that. So here I'll so you have to use this cinematic viewport to give you this little red number, which corresponds to where this red line is here. So I'll move that to 300. And also, well, actually, let's move that bottom line as well for me automatically. So that's great. So I'll move the slider all the way to the end of the sequence. And so here, if I have my little auto key turned on, all I need to do is rotate the sunlight. So I'll press my G key here in the viewport to show the directional light. It's not the sun, although it looks like the sun. And I'll make the rotation here manually. So we'll do that like that. Leave it a little bit at the end. And now, there we go. So that's it. Animation done. So a couple of things. The animation here is following a how do we call it? This curve here is easing at the end of the 2 points. So we don't really, you know, that's the sun doesn't kind of slow down and speed up. So we'll select those 2 keys and right click and go linear. Okay, so if I click on this rotation again and show those little curves again and that pitch, so now that's perfectly straight, which is great. That's what we want. So the sun is kind of doing its thing. And that's that. So I completely forgot to create a camera. So we're going to create a camera right now. And I'm going to create one by clicking that little button here, which is going to give me a camera in here. And so obviously you've got many ways of creating, oops, didn't mean to do that. Where's my place actors? Here we go. Put it back. So you can create a camera in here, cine camera actor here. You can actually also create a camera here, create camera, cine camera actor here. So the reason I like to do it in here is that so I'm going to save everything before I lose it all. If I close, so here, if you see, I have the camera in my scene, cine camera actor. If I'm going to close this sequencer, the camera is now gone. All right, so I really like that, because how many times have you moved a camera in your scene where you had everything all, it's all been agreed, everything's kind of been signed off, and then you've moved the camera and you did autosave and you saved and you've lost it, and now you're like, oh gosh, I've got to go back in my archive, retrieve something, re-import it or something else. So here I really like the fact that these cameras basically only live inside the sequence, and it's very difficult to mess them up. So here, that's what I like to do. And then for those of you who've never used the sequencer before, do be very careful. You see me kind of click these little white cameras here, and that's basically means that that's what I'm looking at in my preview. So just if you're completely new, you'll see it here. I'm clicking in the viewport and nothing happens. And this is very frustrating because you want to move your camera and you can't, because you need to have it previewed here. That little camera actor needs to have this little camera. And how many times have I been frustrated and completely forgot that I was in preview mode down here. So finally, and I've kind of been working with filmmakers recently, and I've been introduced to the the logic of filmmakers regarding lenses. And here I always try and shorten my lens, so in typical Archviz is going to be like this. And that's fine. This provides a lot of value to your clients, but now we've got real time. We can create as many animations that we want. And I like to go in like this, and it just shows the people become a lot more important, and we tell a bit more stories and things like that. So yeah, we can show everything, but we don't have to. And here, maybe that's more what architecture kind of is about, should be about, little moments like this. So that being said, and finally, all right, when you're a filmmaker and you choose a lens, you don't just kind of slide, or you don't just pick 12 or 15 out of habit. It's a conscious choice, and it's an important choice because it costs money. And some of these lenses cost an absolute fortune. So it's a conscious decision, and it's worth spending a little bit of time. So rather than just go with the absolute kind of standard that we're just used to. Okay, so a little apartheid for filmmaking here. All right, so okay, so half an hour left. So now we've got our animation running 300 frames, and great. So it's working, it's going from day to night. So here, I'm not necessarily suggesting that you are going to create an animation like this and render and send that to your client, and that's going to be useful. Yeah, you can obviously, but what this also gives you is the ability to, it's like a time slider. So it may be interesting to have that in a presentation, or it might be interesting just for yourself to be able to pick exactly the moment that you want. It becomes a little bit more interactive. But also, if you were to build a UI, so where your project will be presented in real time, and you're going to have in the interface the ability to change the time of day, for example, well, this is how you would do it. You would first build a sequence, maybe of 100 frames, and then you would have you would use the timing between the beginning and the end to map to your slider on the interface. So this is kind of, as you progress using Unreal, and you'll see how it's incredibly powerful, the interaction between blueprints and sequencer, basically. Okay, so you're able to really double down on the functionality using the sequencer and the blueprints together. So that being said, when the light goes down, the lights turn on inside the building and outside as well. So we're going to add some lights and turn them on now. So let me just make sure I've got all my stuff in order in here. So camera and directional light. I can't see any keys. Oh, here we go. So I've got the keys in there. So let's add some lights. So here, see, I'm kind of using this slider now to give me the different time of day. And I'm going to put this back on one here just to make sure. Okay, so now I'll pop myself out of this camera and I'll go a little bit closer to the building, and then actually we'll go more towards the night. Yes, this is what I wanted to do, to just move this key a little bit further in so that it's night a little bit early on. Okay, so I'll move closer to the building and add a few spotlights here in the front. It's very dark. Oh, spotlights here, and I'm going to use a little IES profile that I've got from before and drag and drop that straight into the IES texture of the spotlight. So it gives us this pattern typical of IES lights. So obviously that always works a little bit better when it's close, very close to the surface, but also in Unreal, you kind of need to
Fabrice,
yep.
can I bother you again?
Yeah, go for
Sorry,
it. Go for it.
I'm like a disembodied voice every time I come in.
The voice from underground.
Yeah, there's another quick question.
Yeah.
He's talking about that he gets jagged edges and flickering issues when he brings things in from ArchiCAD or 3ds Max models through Datasmith, and he was wondering if what might be a solution to that. Or
yes. Okay, so this is very important. Jagged edges, we'll deal with that in just a sec. Flickering, all right? Especially if you've got things like grids and, lots of parallel lines. And I'm trying to find some textures in here. Where, well, they're all gone here. Nope, sorry. No, in there, sorry. A CAD building, no. What am I looking for? All right, so let's say, so here you will see that all these textures are square. All right, and even though, well, so see, this is exactly what you don't want to do. This came from 3ds Max, obviously, and in 3ds Max, we are totally okay to use non-square textures. And the problem here is exactly what I was talking right at the beginning. In Unreal, everything has to be ultra optimized to be put in the memory and then taken out of the memory, swap with something else, because you're moving to some new area and we need to get rid of the stuff that we don't need and put some new stuff in. So square textures basically use this mip-map mode. And so here, there is no mip-map because it's not square. So what happens is that Unreal, when your texture goes far away, is going to try and reduce the size of it. And if it's not square, it's not going to do that very well. If you have a square texture, especially when you've got grids, Unreal is going to be able to apply this MIP level here, which I can't kind of demonstrate too much to you right now, unless I have a square one. No. So, yeah, so basically, see how this is now going blurry? Because as the texture moves far away from you, basically Unreal is going to unload, see here, it's going to unload the texture and have it displays as a tiny little thumbnail. So that's all happens under the hood and you don't need to worry about it. But if you have grids, basically what happens is that Unreal under the hood is going to make this square for you, even though that you, even though you haven't done it. So, but in this process, it's not going to do it, I guess, properly. And this is, I'm not quite sure why it's like that. But what I know is that when you have flickering in your textures, like a grid or like a grid or parallel lines, it's going to flicker like mad in the background, and what you have to do is make your textures square. And a lot of the time that means to actually go back into Photoshop, make that a square canvas and then fill in the empty areas by hand. And this, it's quite a job if like this here, all your textures. So this is good. This is what you want, a square texture. When they're not square, you're going to have, well, if you're lucky, you don't have problems. But if you have problems, so that regarding jagged edges, we'll deal with that in just a few minutes, but I need to hurry up to finish off now because otherwise I'm not going to manage. So I'll take, so this, yeah, cool. Yeah. So there, I'll make that a little bit less intense. So you see now I've opened the cone angle and I get this really nice IES, very realistic kind of light pattern here. So I'm going to use the Alt key. Alt and Shift is really cool because I'm copying the light and moving my camera at the same time. So I let go of the Alt key and then press the Alt key again and then go here like that. And so I'll just do that. Oops, do that a little bit quicker. So again, this is really cool having a completely orthogonal building because I can just copy my lights like this and they just all match perfectly. Okay, a couple more. And so now I have so I'll just add a couple more in there. And sorry if this is a bit boring. Okay, so now what I want to do, so first of all, I'm going to get rid of these crosses here because it's telling me off because there's too many lights close to each other because I'm in stationary mode. So I'll move them into movable. And so now I want to be able to turn all these lights on and off in the sequencer, right? I don't need to kind of necessarily, well, I can change the intensity, but so the way to do this is to kind of select all the lights and then add them all, 15 lights, whatever, 11 actors to sequencer, and I'm going to have to set the key for each one of them. It's going to take me the rest of the time, and it's really boring to watch. So we're going to use our light function material here, which I guess, hang on, we didn't use it before. So we didn't use it in the sun, which is fine. It doesn't matter. We'll use it here in the spotlight. So what is this light function material? Well, it's just basically enables you to put a mask in front of the light. So if you wanted to fake, you know, the branches of a tree, for example, in a shot, that's kind of really used to be very common thing to do. So or you know, or the grid of a window, something like that. So here I've actually created one before, so I might just use that. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it. I'm going to delete all of this and we'll recreate it all. Okay, so here I'll create a material, right click in the background and select a material. I'll call that spot intensity and double click on that to open it. And so all we need to do here is transform this material into a light function. So it's, you know, it sounds complicated, light function, but all it is just basically one emissive color, and you're going to have a black and white image in here. So we're going to make it even more simple than that. We'll have we'll create a scalar parameter by pressing and holding S on the keyboard, and we'll call that spot intensity. All right, I'll give you a default value of 1, and we'll save that. Okay, so now, and if I apply this spot intensity kind of light function or light function material, drag and drop that onto the light function of all the spotlights. And now if I go into here and I take my spot intensity, I can turn it down. Okay, on all of them. So it's unfortunately in Unreal, we can't do light instances like you can do, you know, that's how you do it in Max, have just all these lights being instances of each other, but in Unreal it doesn't work. So what I can do here is have this mask, which when it's on 0, so basically it's like an image that's going to be black, you know, it's like it's the equivalent of having RGB, but they're all the same. So here I'm kind of going to 0, that's kind of completely black. And when I'm on 1, that's white, and I can't go up, well, I can go, but it doesn't do anything if I go above 1, obviously, because that's just pure white. So now I want to have this inside of the sequencer to be able to animate it. So the only problem is that I don't have any way to put this parameter in here. Well, I do. And so that's what I'm going to show you now. I can't put this particular thing in here. What I have to do is create a material parameter collection track. So that's exactly what this is. This is a parameter inside the material. So I want to basically create this material parameter collection, which is going to enable me to bridge between the sequencer and any material. Okay, so that means basically you could animate any material. I did that for a Thomas Heatherwick presentation a couple months ago, which just sort of had a feature in the site, and then the camera was pulling out, and then we just made that self-illuminated. So it went from realistic to self-illuminated, and that's how we used it. Very, very simple. So in the content browser again, we'll go to material parameter collection. So you can tell there's Epic is full of geeks who are amazing at programming. And so, you know, this is very difficult to say over and over again. So here we go. Scalar parameter. That's what we want. That's what we created here, a scalar parameter. So we'll have that in here. We'll create one there. So I know this, you know, it sounds a bit complicated, but really it just isn't. We'll have a default value of 0 because we want to start off during the day and the spotlights will be open. And here we'll call that spot intensity. Okay, save that. Now in my material, I want to replace this parameter, which is kind of not linked to anything, with my new parameter collection, which I'm going to rename because I'll call that light parameter collection. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop that in here. And so now I've got this parameter collection inside the material, and I can assign the variable that I created here. So now I'll replace this. My lights will turn off because I've got a default value of 0. And in the sequencer, I can now add my track, my light parameter collection that I've just created. And now, again, I can find spot intensity, which is this variable that I've just created. So here, I've got a key that was created as I assigned the track. In here, value 0, and then I will move the slider down, create a value of 1 at this stage here. And so now I've got my lights turning on. Great. Okay, so again, I was working with this friend who's in advertising, and he was showing me some scenes that they were doing outdoors. So I'm going to add a few lights, and my gosh, the amount of lights that they add for an outdoor shoot is crazy. And what they were showing me is literally these massive diffusers. So really, really big lights like this into, you know, on huge posts. And I guess it really depends on the filmmaker. But I thought, all right, great. Well, that's, if they do it, then we can do it too. So here I'm kind of, I guess, simulating some street lights or some things like that, but I like to just put some lights in the trees, and then I'll use this kind of spotlight here. I'll duplicate that to put onto my little couple here. What I didn't do also is just to add a little bit of warmth on these kind of artificial lights to make them, yeah, a little bit warmer. So, oh, what have I done? Okay, world outliner. Oops, no. All right. No. Okay, I'll turn that off. What's happened to my interface? Go away. All right, well, it doesn't want to go away anymore. I don't know what I've done. I'll get another one. Nope. All right, fine. I'll just do it like this for now. Well, don't know how, if I can open another one. Nope. Okay, fine, whatever. Be that way. I've got another one here, fine. If I just get this out of the way, there we go. So here I'll just select all these spotlights and just make them a little bit warmer. 5500, just because. And then these two rectangular lights, I'll make those a little bit warmer as well. And so that's that. And so basically now we have our scene going from day to night. How are we doing? Are we all right to go a little bit over? I've got 10 minutes left. I'm not sure I'll do everything in 10 minutes. Yeah, okay, no problem, no problem. I'll just finish off really quickly and talk about the anti-aliasing very quickly. So finally, what we're gonna do is just add some lights on the inside of the building. So I'll just go really quickly to do that. It's using this interior cube map node. So I'll just mention it and I'll let you do your little bit of research. It's pretty simple. Thing to use. I'll just show you that in a sec. So all I'm doing now is adding a plane, basically, that is going to receive an HDR. So let me just go place this plane here, and I'll just copy a couple in there to put behind the facade. So what we've got here is basically these, I'm so sorry, I need to rotate it actually before, because I know it's going to go wrong. So I'll do that like that and move that up a little bit. Okay, and I'll create another couple behind there. And so I won't recreate it from scratch because I think, if I'm right, I've got one already made. Materials, interior cube map. So I'll just add it straight like that and I'll just show you what this is about. So my interface has gone completely berserk. So I've got this interior cube map node, cube map material in here. And so if I just replace this quickly here, you will see that this is using this interior cube map node, and that's all there is to it. You just need to put this tiling here, vector 2, 2. So just a constant vector with the values 1 and 1 in here to have exactly the same as I have. And so what this is doing is basically giving, in fact, I'll just get rid of that just a sec to show you. It's using a cube map that I basically got an HDR that I got out of HDRI Heaven, and just a standard interior HDR, and it's enabling you to show, so I'll add a little bit of intensity, to show the inside as if you're kind of looking at something that's fairly realistic here. So my ray tracing is kind of giving me a little bit less quality than in normal mode, but you can see that here I've got it's kind of a pretty clever little effect. So I'm going to put that back in. I've already created, so I'm going to add in my material parameter collection, I'm going to add another value, and I'll call that HDRI intensity, and have a value of 0 as well. I'll go back to my sequencer, add the HDRI intensity key as well in here, and I'll add that here. And I'm going to make sure that my material parameter collection is here, also replacing this intensity here. So I'll make sure that I've got my little HDRI. So it's exactly the same thing that we did for the spotlights. So I'll save that. And then, so now, if I create in my sequencer another key with value of 1, then I'll have my lights turning on, and then as you can see, it kind of looks like something's inside. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty cool when you see it from far away. So here I've got this. Okay, so so it kind of makes the building come to life a little bit. So here we'll turn that off and then turning on. And there we go. So that's the animation pretty much done, you know, as far as the only thing is kind of, it looks a bit dark here with my planes, but I need to find a way to sort that out. And now all my lights are kind of turning on. Maybe if I can copy that one I thought I had, a couple more up there to give. So obviously you would select, you know, you would add a few different ones, but it really gives the sense, especially when you're far away, it really gives a sense of something, you know, there's life inside the building and it's not just one omni kind of, you know, lost in the middle. Whew, right. Okay. So now that's done. So all we need to do now is basically render the animation. So as you know, you can render the animation using this render movie setting here. And then as it stands here, I just need to press capture movie, and everything will be captured at whatever, you know, 1080p, 4K, you pick, and it'll take a few seconds, which is pretty amazing. If you, like me, you've been rendering animations for the last 20 years, this is pretty cool. So, and, you know, clients think so too, by the way. So this is really a lot of value to be provided here. So now, anti-aliasing, which goes back to our question about jagged edges. So I want to get rid of, I've never seen this little problem on my interface, and I'm a bit upset. So hang on, let me just make sure all my lights are in movable, so I can movable. Okay, so now you want to, so I'm going to show you basically how, so let's pick a frame, say frame number 27. Okay, and let's just ignore these. I'll just hide these guys for now. I'll just yeah, well, I'll just leave them. Ignore the black windows. So if we want to render this frame, we go to movie render queue. So normally, if you want to just make a capture of this, you can just go, press F11, full screen, make a capture like that, high resolution screenshot, you know, maybe multiply by 2, and then you press this button and then you get a nice screenshot. However, there's jagged edges, which is the issue that we have. So here I'm gonna select a sequence. So if you haven't used this before, it's pretty simple. You can explore it in your own time. But there is one setting in here that you basically are not going to be able to figure out on your own if you're anything like me. So it's this anti-aliasing. So here, I'm going to set an output into my C drive render. And I'll do a 4K. 4094, I can't remember now. 4160. Let's say 4160, 160 by, no, it's 2160, 2160 by 4096. 4, is it? I can't remember. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. So here I will render this frame called, whatever we said, frame 27. So if I say frame 27, The next one has to be frame 28. Okay, so accept this, render local. So here it's on my other screen. And it's rendering, hopefully. I did it fine this morning. All right, maybe not. Okay. All right, here it is. So it's coming shortly. So obviously by the time my PC became responsive, the render was finished. But I will show you just that right now. Okay, so while Photoshop's opening, I will show you here what you want to do with this anti-aliasing. So in fact, I shouldn't have put it in just yet. So everything's kind of going wrong here. I'll just open with Photoshop. If Photoshop wants to, okay, here we go. So here we have and we have this issue of jagged edges. See, this line is discontinuous. We have, so this is great as a screen grab, but we don't have any of this nice smoothing that we would expect from having a still render. And here the steps everywhere. So that's not good enough. Well, it's good enough, but could be better. So here, I'll give you the very, very short version. We can explain why some other day. What you want to do here is override anti-aliasing. So the default anti-aliasing method inside of Unreal is going to be temporal AA. So you want to override, have none instead. And here, what you want to do is increase the number of samples count in here. So you're getting told off here because it's saying, we usually with temporal AA use 8 samples minimum. So here you're using 1, so you might as well not. So if I press 9 here, my warning goes away. So let's go and press 16. We'll add 16 samples and then render again. So if my computer lets me, let's show you the other window that's going to show on the other screen. So did I press the button or not? All right, 1 more minute. So here, and yeah, so the window's on the other side and I can't move it, but what I'm doing, it's basically rendering the image 16 times, overlaying it on top of each other, and it crashed. So there you go. Sorry about that, but basically you did get the information. I can just about probably show you the version that I did earlier. Here we go. So here, when you do what I've just shown you and it doesn't crash, you get this image, which is here. So that's 100%, and you will see that all the edges will be perfectly smooth, just like you would get in an offline render. And yeah, this I did without ray tracing. So maybe my poor little laptop is just kind of a bit tired right now. So maybe try this without ray tracing and it won't crash. And here we go. Done it. 2 minutes over. Hopefully that all made sense.
Fabrice,
that was
fantastic.
helpful.
I was just waiting I knew you were getting to the end, so I was like, just waiting. So
just made it.
Yeah,
so,
can you stop sharing your screen and we'll speak
yeah.
for just 1 minute together?
Yeah, cool.
Congratulations, Fabrice.
Yeah, it was really great.
It was really good.
And
Yeah.
people were very
Excellent.
happy. I think in the comments we asked, if it was valuable for them, and they were very happy. So we're really glad too that
Brilliant. I'm
that
very
everybody
glad.
enjoyed it. And you're a very good teacher. I enjoy listening to your soothing voice.
You should do ASMR videos also.
Brilliant. Yes.
So
I'll do my voice.
we really appreciate it. Let me just ask you real quick here at the end. Is it okay if people email you if they have questions afterwards?
Yeah, of course. Yes. So email.
It's earlier in the video. I think you put it up at the beginning of the video.
That's my
you?
Epic email, and then you can just go on my website, get in touch, or via YouTube.
Okay. So I think what I'll do is when we get when I get this link for the files, I'll put that and your email down there. And if somebody has a question about it, then they can have a look. And that's what I wanted to say to everyone. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry we didn't have the link for the files, but we will get that up there, and you can always go back after you have the files and check out the video again. So that, yeah, I mean, Fabio, you have anything else?
No, that's it. I would like to ask those who are watching from home if you have any questions or if you have any recommendations about what you want to learn next. If we were to do a workshop like this again in the future, what would you like to learn? What are the topics that you are interested in? And if you have any feedback, like really any kind of feedback, just leave it in the comments. We'll go through them and we'll try to get as much information as we can to make the next shows even better and more, and make them resonate more with what are the needs of the community.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Even more better.
Yeah.
Always better.
Yeah, because we think, it needs to be, sometimes it needs to be specific to the things that that people are doing. And right now we're...
Yeah, exactly. And this is, I guess, this is what this particular scene came from people saying they want to get more bigger stuff. So,
yeah.
But sometimes I skip over the bases for complete beginners, so yeah, it's always a tricky one to get with advanced and beginners. So, so see what people say.
You're getting a lot of praise right now. Everybody's saying thank you, great, very happy. So that's good.
Oh, brilliant! Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's a real pleasure, and unfortunately, I didn't manage to ever make it to D2 before, so I'm super glad to be here this time. And then next year we'll be there in person.
Yeah, in person, of course, is something else. But it's this is just as fun. But yeah, I look forward to that, Fabrice. I've met you in person once before, but it would be nice to have you in Vienna. So
yeah.
So
definitely.
Thanks again. We're gonna sign off now.
Guys, leave a like for Fabrice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't like for us, like for Fabrice, please. But just real quick, right at the end, I want to say everybody will be back in an hour. We have a great evening planned for the main event of the D2 for day 2. So
another 3 great speakers.
Another 3 great speakers, which we really look forward to showing you guys since we're keeping it a secret. So we'll see you guys soon, and go set the schedule. Even though if it's only an hour from now, so you can just leave your YouTube open.
Yeah.
All right.
Get some beers.
So thanks,
see you guys
everybody.
later.
Excellent.
Bye.
All right. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
bye.
See ya.
Bye bye.